Okay, so this is our next topic video, topic 1.3. And in this topic, we're going to be focusing on developments in South and Southeast Asia. So overall, we want to make sure that we understand how trading states in South and Southeast Asia unified, ruled, and provided for their populations from 1200 to 1450. So our central question is a twofold question. First of all, we want to make sure that we understand what factors contributed to the development of trading states in South and Southeast Asia. So we want to explain why states and empires emerged in this area from 1200 to 1450. Most importantly in this, we need to be able to define what a trading state is and why they develop. After that part of the lesson, we're going to focus on how did these new trading states unified, ruled, and provided for their populations. Now, in this, we're not going to get as specific as we got in Dar al-Islam nor in China. We're going to hit the high points. And this is a very complex lesson because there's just not one common state to look at. There's actually four. So as we go through this, focus on the key things that define them as a trading state and also the unique ways that they unified, ruled, and provided. After we're done with that, we're going to work on comparing these states. How, when we look at the big picture, can we find similarity and differences in how these states of the tapestry unified, ruled, and provided for their population? So we begin with the context. Every historian has to contextualize what he does. So overall, throughout history, we know that people make states that are founded by political systems for both internal and external reasons. There's things inside the population and things outside the population that kind of motivate them to build these states. And they rule through a variety of institutions, processes, and procedures. So when we focus on the global tapestry, no matter what we're studying, no matter where we visit, we want to make sure that we understand that the states of the global tapestry, they use a state religion to unify, rule through legitimacy and a very good bureaucracy, and provide through a market economy based on agriculture and trade. So when we move to South and Southeast Asia, we're specifically looking at trading states, and I'll define those in a minute. Now, these trading states, they're going to develop, and they're going to use either Hinduism, Buddhism, or Islam to unify their population. They're going to have a bureaucracy that is very educated in trade, and they're going to provide their market economy through this big trade of luxury goods, such as cotton, pepper, and spices. So as we go through, think about this context, and it will guide you to what you need to write down. Moving on, why did states develop? Well, when we talk about the area of the world that we're talking about, the part of the web that we're focusing on, we're looking at South and Southeast Asia. This is essentially what's displayed for you on the map. South Asia essentially is India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh today, the Indian subcontinent or the Indian Peninsula. Southeast Asia includes both the mainland states of today that are Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand, as well as the islands between the peninsula and Australia, such as the Philippines, Indonesia, and so forth and so on. So this is kind of a unique area, a unique web that we're talking about, because both Dar al-Islam and China, East Asia, they were mostly connected by land routes with some maritime routes in. This is totally connected by maritime routes, and you'll see how that fits in a minute. This area was once ruled by an empire. This is a map of the Gupta Empire, which was a classical empire in the same light as Rome and Han China. But just like those two, they had fallen due to their inability to unify the diverse population and establish a centralized rule. After the fall of the Guptas, South and Southeast Asia fell into decentralization. And what replaced this one unified empire was smaller kingdoms who stubbornly remained independent. These smaller areas were called trading states. Trading states are smaller political entities who develop due to trade, and they unify through using a state religion. They rule through specific institutions and processes, and they provide agricultural development and a market economy. So one comparison that we're seeing so far between the Abbasid Empire, Song China, and the trading states here is they're unifying using religion, they're ruling through specific things, and they're promoting economic development. The difference is these trading states are much smaller. And why did the trading states develop? They developed because of trade. Some of these states developed because, well, they promoted and regulated the production of luxury goods. Other trading states developed because they provided access to luxury goods from their coastal ports. And another reason why trading states developed is because they controlled vital parts of trade routes and profited through taxing them. So you'll understand that as we go through this. But when we come back to the beginning, why did states develop? So far, we've established one, the Gupta Empire fell, and due to the diversity in the area, it was replaced by smaller trading states. That a trading state develops because of trade, and it develops because it either controls production of luxury goods, controls access to luxury goods, or controls trade. So this is the big motivation for the making of trading states in South and Southeast Asia, and that's demand. We see our little buddy there, demand. South and Southeast Asia produce some of the most popular luxury goods between 1200 and 1450. In the top left, we see cotton. In the bottom right, we see pepper. In the lower left, we see spices. Now, all of these things were in high demand because they were cheaper. They were available to a bigger market, and they would be used by a larger part of the population. So instead of sending them in small amounts, these are going to be shipped in bulk. So let's just review. Why did trading states develop? They develop because the world is demanding the cotton, the spices, and the pepper that come from this area. So these smaller states develop, one, to either control the production of pepper, spices, or cotton, two, to control access to them, or three, control trade routes for them. Now we're going to move on to how they ruled. Now, first off, what we're going to do is we're going to go through 4 case studies, and then at the very end, we're going to bring it back together. You're going to need to know these case studies, but don't write a book on them. We begin with the trading state of the Delhi Sultanate. This is located in northern India, and their main luxury good that they produced was cotton textiles. The Delhi Sultanate was established by a group of Muslim Turks who invaded northern India to take advantage of the wealth there. So automatically, we see an issue with the population in that Muslims and Hindus, they don't get along very well. And we'll cover that in a little while. So they're going to have to come up with some unique ways to not only unify the population, but also rule the population. And that way was this. It was very decentralized. So they did allow Hindus to be Hindus. They did allow Muslims to be Muslims. And essentially, they allowed individual states to simply exist on their own under the rule of the Delhi Sultanate for the sake of economic production. So the way it worked is the people were not directly ruled by the Delhi Sultanate. Rather, the much smaller individual kingdoms and states, well, they were ruled, their leader was ruled by the Delhi Sultanate. So power is going to be established by agreement. They would go to local rulers and they would say, you rule your people, and I'm going to rule you. Overall, this was an Islamic government. So everything that you heard about in the lesson on Dar al Islam, it essentially is working here. The Sharia law, the jizya tax, everything like that. But understand, this is not as centralized as a Muslim state. The power of the Delhi Sultanate was not over the people, it was over the local rulers. Now, they promoted trade through establishing gold and silver standard weights and measures. That would be money. So they produced gold and silver coins as part of their market economy. And what they produced was these beautiful cotton textiles. They produced them in mass quantities and began to promote this innovation, this technology of the spinning wheel to be able to get these intricate designs. So we have one in our case study so far. Another one is going to be the Vijayanagar Empire. The Vijayanagar Empire essentially was an empire in southern India. And this is a large Hindu empire. And they gained wealth by controlling the trade for a little bit of cotton, but also pepper through their port city of Calicut. When merchants are going to dock at the city of Calicut, the state is going to control their access for trade. So when we look at the bigger picture, yes, they were Hindu. And this Hinduism is going to be across the board, but they were also very, very tolerant. They too are going to use a decentralized system in which power was established by agreement. They ruled individual rulers, and they went to them and they said, you rule your people and I'll rule you. But their legitimacy is going to be established by the caste system. Also, their bureaucracy was established by the caste system. Let me explain. The caste system, as we know, is a very strict hierarchy, and those in the upper caste have better karma because they fulfilled their duties in a past life. So the leaders, well, they're good people. That's why they're in the upper caste. And the merchants, they too are good people. That's why they're in the middle caste. So as you can see, we're still seeing some very big similarities. But as I said before, the main role of this trading state was that it controlled the trade for raw cotton and pepper through the port of Calicut. This is a European drawing of the port of Calicut. And essentially, as you see the city on the peninsula, but also you see that island with a fort. When merchant ships docked at that fort, the merchandise was taken into official custody and taxes were levied on it. The security of the merchandise was guaranteed. The Vijayanagar also provided access to important pepper trade. Pepper was grown in the interior, and the Vijayanagar brought the pepper into these cities to sell to foreign merchants. So essentially, this is how it works. This is a trading state because it's controlling access. All the trade goes through that island. So anybody that comes to trade for the pepper has to pay heavy taxes on it. There's no direct contact between those that grow the pepper and those that want to buy it. Rather, the Vietnamese in the middle. They too had gold and silver coins, and they really promoted this trade and became very powerful. Moving to Southeast Asia, we're going to use the Khmer Empire. So we know that on one hand, the Delhi Sultanate is an Islamic trading state that indirectly ruled northern India, but they produced cotton textiles and they sold it and made a lot of money. The Vijayanagara Empire, well, they were a Hindu empire which controlled access to the vital pepper trade that the outsiders wanted. Remember, they didn't produce the pepper, they simply controlled access. The Khmer, well, they're going to do both. The Khmer was a very powerful centralized power, meaning that they ruled directly from the city of Angkor Wat. And essentially, this is going to be more similar to China and how the Song dynasty ruled from one of two capital cities that we talked about. And their power radiated from these capital cities. They're going to begin as a Hindu empire, but they very rapidly become Buddhist because Buddhism greatly appeals to merchants. Buddhism, through its equality, appeals to merchants because it treats them more equally with the upper class. Now, their main claim to fame as a trading state is that they not only grow spices, but control access to spices. Spices, spices, and more spices. Spices were in high demand because unlike silk where you had to buy a set amount, spices you could buy very little or you can buy a lot. So it's going to be available to a larger population. Also, spices were popular because they could be used not only to season food, but also for medicine and perfumes and colognes. This is the city of Angkor Wat. And evidence from this picture shows us that they were very powerful. This is the main palace. So you can see that the government was powerful because they produced this palace. That in the beginning, you can also see that this was designed to promote Hinduism. But after they became Buddhist, they also began to include certain Buddhist statues within this complex. They also kind of promoted economic activity because the space between the outside wall and the palace, that big open area with the two buildings, that is where a lot of the market activity took place. Our last one was the Srivijaya. And the Srivijaya Empire was a trading state because it controlled trade. They were very powerfully centralized, and they had a very advanced navy, and their claim to fame, their power, was that they controlled trade. As you can see, there's a very narrow strip of land. It's called the Straits of Malacca that the Srivijaya Empire controlled, and they would highly tax any ships that would go through there. So India and Song China were trading at this particular point in time. So both Chinese ships and Indian ships would have to go through these straits to be able to trade. This was part of this big, gigantic trading network that's developing. But basically, this is something we'll do in Unit 2. So let's kind of sum it up. These are trading states. And these trading states are going to use a religion to unify their population. But it's going to be a different religion because these are smaller. The Delhi Sultanate was an Islamic state, whereas the Vijayanagar was a Hindu state, while both the Khmer and the Srivijaya transitioned to Buddhism. And these religions not only provided a right and wrong, but they unified the population. They ruled either through an indirect way, directly ruling the rulers and not the people, as in the Vijayanagar and the Delhi Sultanate, or they were very highly centralized, such as the Khmer and the Srivijaya. All of them had a bureaucracy that was very highly educated and trained, but their training and their education was in the conducting of trade. All of them were market economies using gold and silver coins, but their role in this market economy was a little bit different. States such as the Delhi Sultanate and the Khmer controlled the production of key luxury goods. Delhi Sultanate cotton textiles, Khmer spices. Other states, such as the Vijayanagar, they controlled access to the valuable pepper trade, whereas the Srivijaya state, they controlled a key part of the trade routes.